There's no form of media quite like reading. The words nuzzle up right into your own thoughts and invite you to visualize the story, barely distinct from replaying your own memories. And there's no sweeter time to read than autumn. Out your window, the stagehands run in to change the scenery. Clouds cut and shape the light. Wind scatters the leaves. The cool air and warm colors. It's dramatic. It's cozy. It's the perfect backdrop to curl up with a story. So put something in a mug and follow me down the rabbit hole of reading.
So, I've gotten obsessively into reading the past couple of months. So, I've always been into media. I'm a big digital media nerd. I'm in film, I've taken media studies classes, but I've really neglected to read books in my adult life. And I wanted to for a few reasons. I mean, obviously, I understand the joy that can come from reading, but I really felt like my focus has been so fractured, and reading could be a way to repair it. Unlike other forms of media, you have to actively read a book and participate. So repairing my focus, but I also feel like there's a more general cognitive atrophy that I've had since I left school. Because I've had no shortage of thinking. I mean, my mind races all the time. I take lots of notes and journaling and that kind of thing. But I feel like I've just not been as sharp, including in the way that I speak. And reading and writing are obviously two sides of the same coin. And as I've had more ambitions as a writer, I've got to read too. And so I'm traveling and I pick up a book to read on the plane and it just catches my attention and I crush it. And then I pick up another and the rest is history. And I am always very obsessive when I pick up new hobbies. I've done this time and time again, even for just barely even hobbies, but just niches like boots or maps or stationery. I typically have this obsessive period and then I find a little bit more balance and they just enter into the pantheon of things that I'm interested in. But this definitely happened with books because, I'm always looking for content creators and what's the lingo, what are the things to get, how do you do this thing? And Booktube was right there to enable me and bring me into its embraces with all kinds of book suggestions and bookshelf tours and all that kind of thing. And so for the past few months, I've gone down this big reading rabbit hole. And in this video, I just wanted to share what that's been like and chat about what I've been reading. So I'll give some mini reviews, but I'll also talk about, I started a book club, I got an e-reader, I developed a way of tracking my books that connects into all my other notes and writing, and we'll even go on a field trip. I also romanticize everything, and reading lends itself so well to that. I mean, a rainy night in autumn. So thanks for hanging out. My name is Jackson. I'm a filmmaker. I work a lot in the outdoors, things like bikes and hiking, but I'm also into design and bookish things like this and stationery. So stick around and let's pick this up in the morning. This is what she does every morning. Comes in here and stares at the light. So let's talk about what I've read this year. All of a sudden, I just caught this bug that started this whole thing, and there's really one man to thank, and his name is Jonathan Steinbeck. In high school, East of Eden was definitely my favorite book that I've read. I've forgotten some of it, but I haven't forgotten the way that Steinbeck writes. It is just effortless and beautiful in this very American kind of way. Just the way that Steinbeck talks about the land, it's just so evocative and just full of beautiful sensory language. I've actually read 3 Steinbeck books in the past few months. I mean, 2 of them are really short. I've read Travels with Charlie, that was longer. I think it was his last book. It's sort of a memoir. He's like road tripping across the US. Very like
prescient discussions about the changing culture of America. He talks about trailer homes and how it relates to sort of a disconnectedness with the land and the place that you're on, the culture of disposability that comes with that. If I were hungry, I would happily hunt anything that runs or crawls or flies, even relatives, and tear them down with my teeth. But it isn't hunger that drives millions of armed American males to forests and hills every autumn, as the high incidence of heart failure among the hunters will prove. Somehow the hunting process has to do with masculinity, but I don't quite know how. So yeah, I would highly recommend that. And then I read two of his like play novellas. And I didn't realize at first that either of them were going to be like this, but I actually love this medium. The first that I read is The Moon is Down. Yeah, and this is a really great book to read right now. This country that's not given a name is invaded by another country not given a name, but it's written in the 30s, or the early 40s. The implication is that it's 1942. The implication is it's like a stand-in for the Nazis, basically. And occupied people have an advantage on their occupiers because they have something to fight for and they're home. And so it's a book, that I definitely has some implications for like us living under a fascist government and like forms of resistance in the States, but also a lot of implications for thinking about the Palestinians and their plight. It was the first time that I really recognized Steinbeck's humor. It's written in like such a Coen Brothers kind of way is how I describe it in film terms. And because of this play novella format, it takes place in just a few locations with kind of like the characters coming on the stage and exiting the stage. They think that just because they have only one leader and one head, we are all like that. They know that 10 heads lopped off will destroy them, but we are a free people. We have as many heads as we have people, and in a time of need, leaders pop up among us like mushrooms. And then finally, just in a single night, I read Mice and Men because it's another one of those short play novellas. It was my least favorite of these. I thought it was just okay. I was really shocked to see. I was looking at Reddit afterwards of kind of how people were discussing this book and how they were talking about how it was discussed when they were in high school, and I felt like it was showing how bad media literacy people have. Besides that, even interpreting it the way that I interpreted it, it was just fine. Try to understand men. If you understand each other, you will be kind to each other. Knowing a man well never leads to hate, and nearly always leads to love. And then I think I'm going to reread East of Eden before I hit up The Grapes of Wrath, just because I think that it will comfortably fall into the place of my favorite book for now, and I'm addicted to his writing, and I just want to read more of it. Yeah, so there's some other books that I finished that I think I'll sprinkle those throughout as I talk about other things. But I'll just leave those out, and I'll call this the Steinbeck section. But how am I keeping track of all this? Let me show you. Recording. Yep. So, I am very much a note taker and a tracker. I like data and having everything logged all nicely. And for years, I've used this app Letterbox that is this tool in social media for logging movies. So it would follow that I would use the equivalent for books, Goodreads. However, Goodreads is not the same, and in looking for something else, it prompted me to set up a much better system that is fully integrated into my whole note-taking knowledge universe. And I tried Fable and the alternatives, but at the end of the day, anything like that is still going to be a closed platform that could go away someday, and you could lose your data, and it also doesn't connect to anything else that you might take a note about or journal about. So I am a huge booster for this tool called Obsidian. It's a note-taking app, but it's more than that. it is like one of the most important things in my life, if I'm honest. And it's actually made me into something of a knowledge worker, somebody who wants to take notes about things and make connections and write work that's the result of it. So what I'm getting at is I created a base of books in Obsidian. This is what it looks like. It's similar to Airtable or Notion. And something like Notion would be easier if this is all you were going to do. But at its core, Obsidian is a note-taking tool, and it stores files just as text written in Markdown on your computer. You can sync it to your phone and everything like that, but that is what makes it so durable. These files just live in Finder. I can go and right-click and say reveal in Finder, and here is that file, and you can see all the Markdown syntax there. Markdown is just an open standard of syntax for just writing bold and headings and stuff like that. If I press this, you can see all the Markdown, but that is what makes it cross-compatible with other tools. It's very easy to migrate or to access those files even if Obsidian were to go away. It's not a lockdown platform. And they are just rolling out bases, like I showed you here, that are just doing a query of those Markdown notes. So you see my books here. I have them grouped by read status, and then all these columns are just properties that tie into everything else in Obsidian. They're not unique to bases. And those are just written in another open standard called YAML. So if I click on any one of these books, 5 Decembers here, you can see the properties at the top. You can come up with whatever properties you want. And then it's below here that I just added all of my notes and quotes. But what's really cool is this prompted me to import all of my Letterboxd movies, which was kind of a process because Letterboxd doesn't just give you one spreadsheet. You have to collate the data into one. But I did that, and now I have basically every movie I've ever seen in here as individual notes with property data. And Obsidian has a really good web clipper that rips articles and puts them into your base. Like you can see an article here, and this just is automatically pulled with all the images and everything. And I have that as well. And this is all just in one base with things queried into different views. And these tags here are universal for all of your notes. So if you're taking a note about Christmas, you could query that in the same place that you tag Christmas movies. Because, knowledge is modular. There's no difference in the knowledge between a book or a movie or a note or a journal entry. So if I wanted to open the folder on comedy, for instance, I could see all of those movies, but I might also be writing a comedy movie. And I'll just show you a quick detour. I mentioned Markdown and YAML. There's another language called Fountain that's an open standard for writing screenplays of all the syntax. And somebody made a plugin for Obsidian for Fountain screenplays. And so you can see here a screenplay that I was writing right inside Obsidian with all the same tagging and note management tools that you have here. And this was a sitcom I was writing, so I can just add that comedy tag right there. I created this gallery view where I added all the covers. I have different table views that just show, what's current if I filter by status. But the real benefit is that when I'm taking notes, I can easily link to these things and pull from them. So let's say here I'm starting to write a crime novel and I want to use 5 Decembers as a reference. I say, a good reference for this would be, and you just do 2 brackets, link to a note. But if you want to quote a note, I can type the name of the book, If I add an exclamation mark before, that will just show the whole note. But if I want to just show everything under a heading, I can do a hashtag and then say characters. You can even quote to embed your reference base. So if I link to it here, I add the exclamation mark before it. That turns it into this embedded view. And then if I add the pound sign, I can pick the view of my base. So I can say books TBR. And here's my whole TBR inside this other note. Okay. I'll cut myself off. Let's talk about how I've been reading, paper or plastic. So there are, I think, just 4 ways to consume a book. Paper, reading on normal smart devices, reading on like an e-ink based e-reader, and listening to an audiobook. Are there more than that? So I'm not going to belabor like the obvious differences between those things, but I'll just speak a little bit to like how I've been experiencing those things differently on this reading journey. So let's start with paper. Obviously paper is the thing that readers are going to romanticize, and I completely do as well. I actually come from a family that works in print media. That's what my parents have done their whole career, and they have a print magazine together called Adventure Journal. And I've done some work with this magazine as well, but it's just, I'm so lucky to have them and to come from the family that makes this beautiful piece of printed material with like great writing and photography. I really do love this magazine so much. It's just great that print is being kept alive and things like this. Adventure Journal, check it out. Then there's also just reading paperbacks for the sake of it, even when they're like 1,000 pages long. You have actual, real, tangible ownership over it, and you can lend it out or resell it or buy it used. And that sort of gets at one important part of why I've just enjoyed this whole reading and writing journey. There is nothing as accessible and democratic as the written word. You know, I do this. I work in filmmaking, which has gotten more and more accessible, obviously, but it is still largely digital and involves social media and the internet and everything like that. The written word is just something that everybody can do. Even that eugenics-loving Helen Keller herself could read and write. And so it stands to reckon that, paper is the democratic form of that. And bookstores are important cultural places as well. If you guys like this video, one I want to do as a follow-up is going to all the coolest bookstores in Portland, because there are just some amazing spaces that host cool events and curate things and are just, I'm romanticizing them. But yeah, I'm not gonna belabor like the physical experience of reading paper. It varies. However, I forgot. I was gonna talk about what I'm currently reading in this. A Storm of Swords by George R.R. Martin, book 3 in A Song of Ice and Fire. This is the mass market paperback. I don't know how much I need to say about Game of Thrones. How about this? This is what I'll say. I wish he would finish the series. Okay, he said in his blog recently he's not going to finish it. He might have just been having like a emo Tumblr blog kind of moment, but he doesn't owe us the book. Okay, you guys absolutely have to leave him alone. Besides, this is what I'm theorizing. You can read books 1, 2, 3 as a trilogy, and then stop and don't even worry about books 6 and 7. So now I'm on the 3rd book, and I think that is gonna prove to be true. But yeah, I love A Song of Ice and Fire. I love George. I think he's a funny guy. Okay, but let's talk about some other cool paper things, because that's reading novels, but that's not the only use of books, right? And paper is just going to be best for these other things. So one of those is as like reference material. So this is a book on the Oregon Coast Trail. I want to backpack the Oregon Coast Trail. I'm planning on it next summer. And having something as a reference material, I mean, I am not sure if I'm going to bring this with me. However, it's great for annotating. Like, I've put these tabs here for the different stages. And this book is just so fantastically done. The author has done a great job of like breaking things into like little blocks with history, and each section has a page like this with a map and max distance between lodging, the water availability, the headland summits you need to do, the legs are shown like that, which is pretty cool. And it has these like sample itineraries, like whether or not you want to include hotel lodging in your itinerary. This by Bonnie Henderson. It only came out a few years ago. It's fantastic, and I hope to share more about it when I make a video on hiking the OCT next summer. Next up, I wanted to point out that I am a massive stationery nerd. I am not a very good artist. However, I love journaling and using paper for planning and things like that. And so I mostly like little A6 notebooks like this one. This is my nature journal. You can see I'm not the best artist, but I can sketch something like that. Or let me show you this nicer page. Yeah, I want to make a video on it, but this is my favorite notebook, the MD notebook. So something like this. And inspiration for this comes from the Law's Guide to Nature, Drawing, and Journaling. I got this for Christmas last year, and this is so incredible. And came at the exact perfect time when I was just like getting into this. It has just remarkable like follow-alongs and inspiration and how to like simplify complicated landscapes. I'll just show you a couple of these spreads. But if you have an artist in your life or somebody who loves nature, this is an incredible gift and one that I love very, very much. I'll also call out, I developed my own system of numbering weeks based on the seasons. Called it like the neo-seasonal calendar. It relates to the whole nature journal thing. I want to make a video about that too. Okay. Then, tabletop roleplay gaming. Tabletop role-playing just lets you use your imagination in any way you want. It stands to reason that paper is a useful tool in that regard. So this is a D&D book called Keys from the Golden Vault. It is a collection of one-shots that are all themed around heists. I'll show you one of the maps. They give you some to show your players versus one that the DM has. So like there's a player one. Here's a DM map. That is cool. And then also just an example of like a classic coffee table book. Something that's very pretty, nice to have out. This is a book by Pantone that goes through different important things in history and shows Pantone colors as it relates to them. Like here's a page on movie goddesses, and it has related Pantone colors right here. It's really cool. So of course I need to mention the interior design aspect of this. We currently have a lot of little collections of books scattered throughout the house, and we would love to combine those into one bookshelf. We want that to go right here, and instead of something tall, we want something to kind of fill this space like that. And we've started looking at vintage shops, trying to find something. So yeah, I think that'll be a little ways away, but hopefully I'll have an update to share about that at one point. Okay, so beyond paper, I'm only gonna say it for a second, but there is standard smart devices. However, the fact that it's your phone and the fact that it is a backlit screen is just something that you can't get away from. And so I wanted to try an e-reader, but I really felt like it's redundant. I mean, it is redundant, but I look at a screen all day long, and I just wanted to have a more minimalistic device that uses e-ink and doesn't have notifications. And really, the main objective of it was to have something more convenient than, carrying paper books along for traveling or whatever. And just try to fully replace like mindlessly scrolling with reading. So I picked up a Kobo. So this is a competitor to Kindle, and it is fantastic. So I'll give a mini review on the Kobo, but first just to say on the e-reader of it, looking at this screen is nothing like looking at a backlit screen. It has a front light, which is perceived by your eyes very differently from the backlight, but I love that you can just do this. That's so nice. Just looking at the screen, even without the front light, it just looks like a book, and it looks great. And I think that doesn't always come across via a screen, but it just is different. And you can obviously load it up with basically as many books as you want, and read next to your partner. In reading this next to Aaron, using like a clip-on book light, it's still too bright, and it still disturbs her too much. So having this has been a great way to read more conveniently, easier ergonomics, I can palm it like that, and has just made me read, which is the whole point, right? So this has been highly, highly successful. More than that, without even trying other devices, I would reckon that this is just the one to get. Okay, so let me give a mini review of this. This is the Kobo Clara Black and White. They're starting to come out with more color screens now, but just know they're not as good for clarity and contrast. So I'd say stick to black and white. It costs like around $150, and then definitely get this little flip case too, because it goes like that and has a little stand, which is awesome. But it's waterproof. It is much more flexible than a Kindle, much less locked down. USB-C, you can plug it into your computer and just drag EPUB files right to it. I'll talk about the different ways you can load it up. It's a pretty slim, nice device, but I think part of why I like it is the thickness and the bezels and having this be a soft touch back and everything. Yeah, here's the device without the case. So, as you can see, I was reading Salem's Lot on it. So let me talk about the different ways you can add books to this, because that was something that took a little bit of research to figure out. So Kobo has their own store like Amazon does, where you can just purchase ebooks straight up. So that's how I'm reading Salem's Lot. I just purchased the book for like $10. However, you could never purchase a book, because this could be a device just for reading classics. Because books that are in the public domain now, you can just download for free. And so I've just loaded this up with a ton of them. I've got Frankenstein, I've got Wuthering Heights, and Tolstoy, and Count of Monte Cristo. And I used Calibri to change the covers for a lot of them. I got Of Mice and Men, and I have this cool scan of a paperback as my cover. So yeah, it can be a device just to run the classics, but you can also load your Libby ebooks onto this. And why that's so cool is, unlike paper books, at least in my library, you can put a hold on everything in your TBR and just suspend the hold when it's your turn until you're ready to read it, which is super convenient. You could just never buy a book by leveraging that, and I've been reading library books on this no problem. It's been great. And then the final method, this actually supports Adobe Digital Editions, the Adobe DRM. And with Libby, you can also download books that way if you don't sign into Overdrive directly on this. But basically what that allows you to do is buy books from other stores if you wanted to for any reason. Like I know ebooks.com, you can do this. Those are Adobe DRM protected. You can authorize your computer and then load them onto this. And because Kobo purchases our Adobe DRM, if you had another device or an app that supported it, you can also move those to there. And I guess finally, you can read Instapaper articles on this. Like, I guess if maybe for like a long New Yorker article or something, you can send it to Instapaper and then send it to here. So yeah, you can see my little collection here. Some of those are library, some are purchased, and some of them are free. All right, so just go over what I'm currently reading. One of those is, like I've mentioned, Salem's Lot. And this was kind of my Halloween book, my October book this year, and it is perfect for that. I haven't even read a ton of Stephen King, but like, I already know he's going to be one of my favorite authors, and it's just proving out with this book. Just like all the different characters in the town make such an ensemble and make the town feel so specific and real. And then the other book that I technically just finished, but was what I was currently reading. It's called The Happiness Trap. So my wife is a therapist, and there are different methods of therapy, like different philosophies and practices. Well, the one that my wife largely subscribes to is called ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. It's really different from other forms of therapy. And she's been wanting me to experiment with it for a long time. And I'm in a fresh round of therapy now and talked to my therapist about it. And she recommended this book that is basically a 101 to ACT, written in a more accessible way. I have really terrible anxiety, and actually making this video and hopefully making more frequent videos is one of those things that I've got so caught up in my mind about. And ACT is really focused on taking meaningful action. Like one of the main Stephen Hayes books is called Get Out of Your Head and Into Your Life. And this is not pop psychology or like cheesy self-help. This is like real studied psychology. So ACT is great, and I am gonna keep practicing it, and I want to read more about it. However, this book, The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris, I think it could be better. It's not gonna be the most entertaining book, like, reading about this kind of thing, but I just couldn't help feeling like this book was not condescending, but maybe just a little corny. I'm gonna keep exploring ACT and read some other options before I fully recommend this one. But the concepts in it are definitely very good, very sound.
It's the same with emotional discomfort. There's no point in wallowing aimlessly in it. In ACT, accepting discomfort has only one purpose: to help you take your life forward in a meaningful direction.
Yeah, so in conclusion, e-reader, read next to your partner, regardless of lighting conditions, have all kinds of books with you, relative flexibility in how you get them, huge back catalog of classics you can read for free, access to a dictionary and vocab, and seeing how much time is left in a book that you're reading. That is super helpful to know. But everybody who I've ever known with an e-reader has spoken very highly of theirs, and I now see why it is a huge catalyst for this whole thing, me being a voracious reader.
Just a couple things that I forgot. One really cool thing is you can sideload fonts onto this. I'm very picky about margins and line spacing and everything like that. And I would mostly read in Georgia when that was an option. But there's this font that I really love that I use as my Obsidian interface and for my brand and blog and everything. It's called IBM Plex Sans, and it's kind of in between a serif and a sans. It's very sharp and legible, and I was able to just put it on here so I can read all my books in it. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, you can actually sometimes buy books without a DRM, which just gives you an EPUB file that you can put on this and anywhere. Finally, briefly, audiobooks. Not a fan. I listened to a full audiobook. I've listened to Between Two Fires by Christopher Bielman. I just find it hard to focus. I can't process the information just audibly in the same way. That's totally fine by me because audiobooks are definitely expensive. And I guess since I'm here, I'll just give my quick take on Between Two Fires. Oh my God, what a fantastic book. It follows this disgraced knight with this young girl who says she can speak angels as they trek through medieval France during the Black Plague. It is epic and sweet, and the characters are really rich with good relationships that develop over the course of the book. I was really moved by the ending. I think the writing style was great. It was just very solid, thick vibes with like good historical references to the Black Plague, which I've listened to some podcasts about, and it's an interesting subject. And the whole like papacy moving to Avignon, I didn't really realize that, and I do think the Catholic Church is just interesting for its continuity from then to now. I'd say of everything I've read so far, Between Two Fires was the one that really, really struck me. I would highly recommend that.
When Delphine saw the knight's eyes soften, she reached her small hand out, and he took it in his large one. And she led him down to the stream, and with its cool water, washed his head and his feet, and helped him wash the anger from his heart.
Okay, that is how I read. Look at the red just brushing on the outside of the trees. So before long, it was obvious that this would be more fun with friends, so I started a book club. I made this cool little graphic for it to try to sell my other Discord members on joining up. We read 5 Decembers by James Kestrel. I would give it kind of a middling score. I'm not sure yet if I want to do star ratings. I'm totally comfortable doing that for movies, but I don't know, for books it just feels a little cruel to quantify them like that. I would still recommend it if you like noir crime, because I really do like genre fiction, elevated genre fiction, and this was definitely that. It definitely wasn't just a bog standard crime noir tale. There's other elements to it, and you got kind of go on these big detours. It was interesting. It was good, but yeah, the characters are a little flat. It was good for the book club because it had like historically accurate things. So one thing I did during our meetings was pull a bunch of references of the locations that it takes place in. The author quotes particular streets and stuff like that, and references historical institutions, and I was able to just pull some of those to kind of provide this visual element. One other fun thing, I did a like fan casting of the characters, but it was a short, easy read, and I think it was a good way to get us started. And now we've just selected our second book. And I went back and forth on how to handle that voting process because, you know, there's a few ways you could do it. You could all just go around and take turns just flat out picking the book. And I think that might work if you had kind of like a smaller group that was well established, but you know, I'm not sure how long we'll do this book club or if it'll peter out or what will happen. So I decided to put it to a vote. Everybody would bring one suggestion. I would not bring a suggestion because I picked the first book. And then, because we're also not that many people, we're like 6 people for this round, I think, I decided to do ranked choice voting. There's this website that makes it super easy. You just put in the different book options, and everybody gets to vote by ranking in order of their preferences. And so if no one book gets the majority votes, it then factors in the second choice, the third choice, whatever is necessary. Some people did listen to audiobooks though, and that doesn't help
you like bring quotes to the table. I'm still, as moderator, trying to figure out how to like stimulate good conversation around these books. I think for this first one, maybe there wasn't too much to discuss. We actually met halfway through the book because we thought it would be a little bit more of a whodunit and we could discuss that, and that wasn't super the case. So yeah, for this next one, we're just gonna read it all the way through. But yeah, let me know if you have any tips on should you give discussion questions ahead of time. That being said, our second book has been selected and it is ready for pickup at the library. I don't know if you could see that. I just the conversation with this woman who's lived here 25 years, and we're just talking about how every season here just looks like a cartoon version of a season. It's like just so unbelievable here. Anyways, this is LOPL, and I'll reveal book club book number 2, Piranesi. We can go talk about this somewhere else. Wow. That is a big boy. Okay, so I've been meaning to try this taco place for a long time. They have kind of weird hours, but I got a vegetarian and a tinga. Thinking about getting these not with transition lenses next time. This is the vegetarian. It's got sweet potato and crema and seeds and stuff. I'm actually so good at EDC, I bet I have a hand sanitizer. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading Piranesi. Kind of the thing that got us excited about it was that Leica, which is a Portland film studio, bought the rights to adapt it into a film. They do stop motion like Coraline. And soon they have a film coming out that takes place in Forest Park here. That's actually pretty good. The seeds give it a nice crunch. For Piranesi, I read the preview, which is awesome that you can read like, typically like, I don't know what it would translate to in a physical book. Maybe like 20 pages, 15 pages of the book. And that really helps you get a sense of the writer's style. And there are books that I've tried with a preview that I've just fully tapped out of. One of those was a book that people on YouTube speak so highly about that I'm like literally trying to square my experience reading the preview. Okay, Red Rising. The beginning of it, I hate this character. I think it is poorly written, like very, very like juvenile and angsty. And I get that those things can evolve, but I just thought Red Rising was cringe from the preview. Sorry.
I can't officially judge it based on that. All right, next up is the Tinga. That one's pretty good too. I like the vegetarian one better. Break the seal. I guess I take it for granted that all these book suggestions I've got from Booktubers, and I'm like, just for some reason assuming you know what these are about. But the concept of Pure Nessie is that this dude lives in a infinitely large house. There are 3 floors. The bottom floor is like ocean. The top is like clouds, and the middle is inhabitable. And there's this other guy he talks to, and something happens. Did you catch the fit?
Whoa. There's a team of rowers down there. Get them!
I'll try not to talk too meta about what I'm doing. I don't love the meta commentary on channels, but I've never really introduced myself on this channel, and I recently renamed it back to my name. And so I won't get into it. I'll just show and not tell by putting out videos. But yeah, my name's Jackson. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm just gonna make videos and films about whatever I want on this channel. Hey, nice dock. Did you see that? My dog is just going for it with the biggest stick ever. Okay, one other thing. I have a blog and newsletter. It is ad-free, high quality, totally free. You don't even need a password. You just sign in with your email. I have other content on there ad-free. Everything there is embedded through Vimeo. And I just want to make it a really great experience because I'm a big fan of independent media and publishing outside of just YouTube and being so reliant on it. So I would really appreciate if you signed up there. Right now it is blog.jacksoncasimero.com. I'll post this video there with some tie-ins. I'm considering putting it on a domain like casimerocafe.com I own, just because I don't love blog.jacksoncasimero.com. Do you guys have any feelings about that? I don't know if it's more or less confusing because I'm not going to rename the channel again. That's the type of thing that I've concerned myself with instead of just making the actual videos. Yeah. In light of that, I just wanted to shout out a couple other creators in BookTube that have helped me with these recommendations and who I've followed for a while, just getting myself up with the lingo and getting me excited about reading. I'd say my favorite is Books Are Sick. Hi, Nick. Super chill guy. I think that he and I probably have pretty similar taste. Another guy is Phil Got Books, who doesn't exclusively read like genre fiction, but he's definitely skews that way, books for dudes. And then the Book Leo, I really like her videos where I'm not getting so much from her book recommendations for my taste, but somebody who really sets the whole aesthetic up and makes very like peaceful, relaxing videos. And you and I have the Willamette all to ourselves.